The House on Blackwood Lane. I need to tell someone about what happened to me. I've kept it inside for 3 years now, and the weight of it is crushing me. My therapist says writing it down might help, but honestly, I think she just doesn't believe me. Nobody does. They all think I had some kind of breakdown, that the stress of the divorce and losing my job created a psychotic episode. But I know what I saw. I know what happened in that house. And I need you to believe me, because if you ever see a listing for 1847 Blackwood Lane in Somerset County, I'm begging you, don't go there. Don't even drive past it. It started in October of 2021. I was 34, recently divorced, and desperately searching for a fresh start. My marriage had imploded spectacularly, I'll spare you the details, and I'd lost my marketing job during the pandemic. I was living in my sister's spare room, sleeping on a lumpy futon, and trying to rebuild some semblance of a life. When I saw the listing for the house on Blackwood Lane, it felt like divine intervention. The rent was impossibly low, like suspiciously low. A 3-bedroom Victorian for $600 a month in an area where studio apartments went for twice that. The listing photos showed a beautiful, if slightly run-down, house with original hardwood floors, stained glass windows, and one of those wraparound porches you see in movies. The realtor, an older woman named Margaret Chen, explained that the owner was overseas and just wanted someone to occupy the property. He's very particular about his tenants, she said over the phone. He wants someone who'll appreciate the house's history. I should have asked what she meant by that. The first time I saw the house in person, it was late afternoon, and the autumn sun cast everything in amber light. The house was even more beautiful than the photos suggested. Sure, the porch sagged a bit and the paint was peeling in places, but there was something romantic about its decay. Margaret met me at the front door, fumbling with an old brass key that looked like it belonged in a museum. The house was built in 1887, she said as we stepped inside. It's been in the Blackwood family for generations. The current owner inherited it from his grandmother about 5 years ago, but he lives in Singapore now. The interior took my breath away. The foyer had a grand staircase with an ornate banister, and through the doorway to the left I could see a library with built-in bookshelves and a marble fireplace. The air smelled like old books and wood polish, with something else underneath, something vaguely metallic that I couldn't quite place.
"There are a few quirks," Margaret said, her smile tightening. "The 3rd bedroom upstairs, the one at the end of the hall, it stays locked. The owner was very specific about that. You'll have full access to the rest of the house, including the basement and attic, but that room is off limits. He keeps personal items stored there." I found it odd, but not alarming. People store things. I signed the lease the next day. I moved in on a Saturday. My sister helped me carry in my meager belongings. I'd lost most of my furniture in the divorce, and we spent the afternoon making the place feel like home. By evening, I was alone, sitting in the library with a glass of wine, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: hope. That first night, I slept better than I had in years. The house was quiet, peaceful. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and thought, this is going to work. This is my fresh start. The strange things started on the 3rd night. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. I remember the exact time because the digital clock on my nightstand seemed to glow brighter than usual. The house was silent, but I had the distinct feeling that I wasn't alone. You know that sensation when you can feel someone watching you? It was like that, but amplified. The hair on my arms stood up, and my heart began to race. I lay there for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes, listening. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the hallway outside my bedroom door. Back and forth, like someone pacing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight app, my hands shaking. I crept to the door and yanked it open, ready to confront whoever had broken in. The hallway was empty. I checked every room, every closet, every window. Nothing. I even went down to the basement, though every instinct told me not to. Everything was locked up tight. I tried to convince myself it was old house sounds, pipes expanding and contracting, floorboards settling, but I knew what I'd heard. Those were footsteps. Over the next few weeks, the footsteps became a nightly occurrence, always at 3:17 a.m., always the same pattern, pacing back and forth in the hallway, stopping outside my door for a few seconds, then continuing to the end of the hall, where the locked room was. I called Margaret about it. She sighed like she'd been expecting my call. "Some tenants are more sensitive than others," she said cryptically. "The house has a presence. It's old. There's a lot of history in those walls." "What kind of history?" I demanded. "Nothing dangerous," she said quickly. "Just echoes. The owner said you might experience some unusual phenomena. It's why the rent is so low. Most people can ignore it." I should have left right then, but I didn't, because despite the footsteps, despite the growing unease I felt, I couldn't afford to. I'd spent my last bit of savings on the deposit and first month's rent. I had no job and no other options, so I stayed. And that's when things got worse. It was late November when I first saw her. I was working on my laptop in the library. I'd started doing some freelance work when I felt that familiar sensation of being watched. I looked up, and there was a woman standing in the doorway. She was young, maybe early 20s, wearing a long white nightgown that looked like it was from another era. Her hair was dark and hung loose around her shoulders. Her skin was so pale it was almost translucent. But it was her eyes that froze me in place. They were completely black, no whites at all, just black pits staring at me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. Then she turned and walked toward the stairs. Not walked, glided. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor.
I couldn't move. I sat there, frozen, listening to the sound of her ascending the stairs. When I finally regained control of my body, I ran out of the house and sat in my car for 2 hours, shaking. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd fallen asleep. Maybe it was a lucid dream, a hallucination brought on by stress and lack of sleep. But I knew better. I knew what I'd seen. That night, I slept in my car. The next morning, I went back inside to gather my things. I was done. I didn't care about the deposit or the lease. I was leaving. But when I opened the front door, I found something that stopped me cold. On the hall table, where I always left my keys, was an old photograph in a silver frame. It hadn't been there the day before. I was certain of it. The photograph showed a young woman in a Victorian-era dress standing in front of the house. She was beautiful, with dark hair and a serious expression. It was the woman I'd seen in the library. I picked up the photograph with trembling hands. On the back, written in faded ink, was Eleanor Blackwood, 1889. I spent the next several hours researching the Blackwood family at the local library. What I found turned my blood cold. Eleanor Blackwood was the daughter of Cornelius Blackwood, the man who built the house. In 1891, at the age of 22, she was found dead in her bedroom, the locked room at the end of the hall. The official cause of death was recorded as melancholia, which was the Victorian term for severe depression. But the newspaper articles I found told a different story. Several servants reported hearing screams the night before Eleanor's body was discovered. They said she'd been acting strangely for weeks, talking about a presence in the house, claiming something was watching her, following her. Her family thought she was losing her mind. One article quoted a maid who claimed Eleanor had told her, "It won't let me leave. Every time I try to go, it pulls me back." Eleanor was found in her bed, her eyes open, her face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. There were scratches on the inside of her bedroom door, as if she'd tried to claw her way out. The room was locked from the outside. I sat in that library until closing time, reading and rereading the articles, trying to make sense of it. When I finally drove back to the house, it was dark. I knew I should pack up and leave immediately, but some morbid curiosity, or maybe something else, drew me back inside. The house was different at night. The shadows seemed deeper, more purposeful. The air was colder, and that metallic smell was stronger. I went straight to my bedroom, packed a bag, and was about to leave when I heard it. A woman's voice, singing softly from somewhere upstairs. It was a lullaby, haunting and beautiful, in a language I didn't recognize. The melody seemed to wrap around me, pulling me toward the stairs. I knew I should run, get in my car, and never look back, but my feet were moving before I could stop them. I climbed the stairs slowly, following the sound. The singing was coming from the locked room. I stood outside the door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The singing stopped abruptly, replaced by silence so complete it felt like pressure in my ears. And then, from inside the room, I heard Eleanor's voice, clear as day. "Help me." I don't remember making the decision. One moment I was standing there, and the next I was running down the stairs, grabbing my bag and stumbling out the front door. I got in my car and drove to a motel on the other side of town. I stayed there for 3 days, trying to work up the courage to go back and get the rest of my things. I called Margaret and told her I was breaking the lease. She was silent for a long moment, then said, "You saw her, didn't you, Eleanor?" "How many people have you rented that house to?" I asked. "You're the 7th tenant in 5 years," she admitted. "No one lasts more than a few months. The owner, he doesn't want to sell the house. He says Eleanor is trapped there, and selling it would be abandoning her. He keeps hoping someone will be able to help her." "Help her how?" "The room," she said. "You have to open the room. That's where she died. That's where she's trapped. But no one's ever been able to do it. The door, it doesn't want to open." "Why didn't you tell me this before I moved in?" I asked. "Would you have believed me?" she countered. She was right. I wouldn't have. Against every instinct of self-preservation I possessed, I went back to the house. It was midday, and the sun was bright, which somehow made it worse. In the daylight, the house looked normal, innocent even, but I knew what waited inside. I brought tools with me, a crowbar, a hammer, a flashlight. If I was going to open that door, I was going to need them. I also brought salt and sage, because I'd spent the last 3 days reading every article about hauntings I could find, and everyone said salt and sage were protection. The house was silent when I entered. Too silent. Even the usual creaking of old wood was absent. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like walking through water. The locked door waited at the end of the hall, and as I approached, I felt the temperature drop at least 20 degrees. My breath came out in visible puffs. The doorknob was ice cold. I tried the crowbar first, wedging it between the door and the frame. The wood was solid, unyielding. I pulled with all my strength, and the crowbar slipped, sending me stumbling backward. I tried again, and this time I felt the door give slightly. A crack appeared, and from inside the room I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. Sobbing. "Eleanor?" I called out. "I'm trying to help you." The sobbing stopped. Then, in a whisper that seemed to come from right beside my ear, "Don't open it." I spun around, but the hallway was empty. When I turned back to the door, it was already open, just a crack. A smell wafted out, decay and something sweet, like rotting flowers. My hands were shaking as I pushed the door wider. The room was exactly as it must have been in 1891. A four-poster bed with moth-eaten curtains, a vanity with a silver brush and mirror, wallpaper peeling in long strips, and on the walls, scratched into the plaster over and over again in a frantic scrawl, "Help me! Let me out! It won't let me go!" Eleanor was sitting on the bed. She looked exactly as she had in the library, but now I could see details I'd missed before. Her nightgown was stained with something dark. Her wrists bore deep bruises, like someone had held her down, and her eyes, those terrible black eyes, were filled with a sadness so profound it hurt to look at. "I've been waiting," she said. Her voice sounded like it was coming from far away, echoing. "So long. I've been waiting so long." "What happened to you?" I whispered. She stood up, and I saw that her feet were bloody, as if she'd been walking on broken glass. "He said he loved me. He said we would be together forever. And when I said no, when I tried to leave," she gestured at the room, at the scratches on the walls, "he made sure I could never leave. Even after death, I'm here, trapped." "Who? Your father?" She shook her head. The house won't let me go. It fed on his anger, his possessiveness. It's been feeding on me ever since." I felt the temperature drop even further. The door behind me slammed shut, and I heard the lock click. I ran to it, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "No," Eleanor said. "It wants you too. It's hungry. It's always hungry." The room began to change. The decay accelerated before my eyes. Wallpaper turning to dust, wood splintering, the ceiling cracking, and through the cracks I saw something moving, something dark and writhing, like the house itself was alive. Eleanor grabbed my hand. Her touch was ice cold, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "We have to break the connection," she said urgently. "The house feeds on suffering, on trapped souls. If we can break the pattern, we can both leave." "How?" "Fire," she said simply. "It's the only way." I don't remember everything that happened next. I know I managed to open the door somehow. Eleanor helped me, using whatever power she had left. We stumbled down the stairs together, her presence beside me becoming more solid, more real. I grabbed matches from the kitchen, and we went back upstairs. Standing in that terrible room, I looked at Eleanor one last time. She was smiling, and for just a moment, her eyes were normal, a beautiful hazel color, filled with hope. "Thank you," she whispered. I struck the match. The house went up faster than it should have. The fire spread like it was being fed by something unnatural, consuming everything. I barely made it out. I stood on the lawn, watching the flames engulf the Victorian mansion, and I swear I saw Eleanor in one of the upper windows. She was wearing a blue dress instead of the nightgown. Her hair was brushed and pinned up, and she was waving goodbye. Then she was gone. The fire department came, but there was nothing they could do. The house burned to the ground. The investigation ruled it an accident. Faulty wiring, they said. I didn't correct them. I couldn't tell them the truth. Who would believe me? Margaret never spoke to me again. The owner, calling from Singapore, surprisingly didn't press charges. Maybe he knew. Maybe he was relieved. I moved away from Somerset County a week later. I'm in therapy now, working through what my therapist calls trauma, and what I know is the truth. I still wake up at 3:17 a.m. sometimes, my heart racing, listening for footsteps. But the house is gone, Eleanor is gone, and I'm free. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I did some more research after the fire.
The Blackwood family doesn't exist. There's no record of a Cornelius Blackwood, no death certificate for Eleanor. The owner in Singapore, the number Margaret gave me was disconnected. The property records show the land has been empty since 1956. So who was Eleanor? What was that house? And whose story was I living in? I don't have answers. All I know is that 1847 Blackwood Lane doesn't exist anymore. The lot is empty now, overgrown with weeds. But sometimes, late at night, I still see her in my dreams, Eleanor, standing in that room, waiting for someone to set her free. And I wonder, did I really help her, or did I just set something else loose into the world? I'm telling you this story as a warning. If you ever encounter a place that feels wrong, that offers you exactly what you need at exactly the right time, run. Some deals are too good to be true. Some houses have appetites, and some ghosts are trying to warn you, not haunt you. I learned that the hard way. I just hope you never have to.